Hi folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. Recently, and we have talked about this, but every year now, for 2 weeks, they open up a very protected area near Wilson Hill near Messina, area that's a game refuge, basically. It's a wildlife refuge, and you're not allowed to fish there at all. But for 2 weeks, they open this water up. And it is the greatest fishing that I've ever had. Now, 2 years in a row, I've had wonderful largemouth and northern pike fishing there. The only way you can fish it is with some little craft that allows you to get on the water. You can't put a motor in there. So you either have to have a canoe or a kayak. But here's the merit to what this whole report is about. In fishing there and catching these wonderful fish that I've caught, it's helped me to learn how to find fish in a different area. And it's based on observation. It's based on, I think, what I've come to discover is that most of the fish that we ever catch, if you catch one, you're going to get more strikes right there. These fish tend to group together. It doesn't matter what species they are. They tend to group. Now, some species are more schooling than others. They hang in schools, like walleye pike, for example. They're always going to be schools. They may be a small school, but they're always going to be in groups. But I've found in fishing these waters that the same thing occurs. Now, maybe it's not so much they want to be together as it is that the conditions in certain areas are just right to make it the type of area that fish will be in. And so you have to learn how to observe and look for areas that tend to be like the last one that held fish. And that can be very different depending on whether you're in a stream, whether you're in a pond-like situation like what this Wilson Hill area is. But it's something that I've really come to appreciate. And I tell my buddy Rust when we're fishing together, Rust, they're going to be in small groups. They're not going to be, you're not just going to find a rogue fish. They're going to be in groups, and we find that. And in that water, what we look for is these masses of weeds, and it's not really all that deep of water, but then there'll be little cuts between these masses where the water looks clear, and these fish tend to hang on the edges. Now, when you get to bigger areas where it's clear like that, and the water may be deeper, those fish aren't there. Those fish are in these smaller pockets that have the access to the protection of the weed beds, and yet the areas where schools of bait and so forth can move back and forth. And it's one of the real revelations of fishing that has come to me over the past couple of years is learning how to find, how to identify these areas that are the same as other areas that really work. You can take the same principle into the Grass River, the Racket River, any of these places. Certain places will hold most of the fish, and yet you'll find another. You'd think, geez, on the other side of the river, there's water that looks good. Those fish might not be there. It's certain key elements that seem to attract these fish. And if you can come to identify them, then no matter whether you go to another region of the river, you can look for these type of conditions, and usually you can be successful. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.